So, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Key to Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. We have another design topic for you this week, but as always, my co-host from Casual Game Studio, Joshua Reyes. It has been a long time since I've asked you this, but how are you doing?
Yeah, I got it has been I don't know when COVID started, but I finally caught it. And every single every kid, the wife, everyone caught it. And so the difficulty level of everyone having COVID in the house is extremely difficult. And so this is probably like the best day that I've had so far with it. And yeah, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing okay. And
Yeah.
in between that, I've been having to because I'm going to. We'll probably have to put the links in later or something, but I'm going to be doing the Game Dev Guild conference, and so I'm going to be giving two speeches, one on source control and another one on AI and game development. So I'll have some links there down below so you can watch the conference. So I've been working on speeches while on COVID with fever dreams and all that kind of stuff. Josh, how are you doing, my man?
I have been alright up and down as well. Well, not as bad as you.
Yeah.
I finished the RPG book. It is finally done. I got my contract signed for 7 and 8. So
Yes.
two more books for this year to write.
Finally, the Souls one.
Mm-hmm.
I've been waiting I've been waiting for eight books.
Yep. Let's see. OBS is having some kind of weird issue at the moment. I'm not sure what is going on. If there's anyone who can troubleshoot it, let me know. But whenever I alt-tab out of OBS, it loses the camera capture. So that's why for you guys, you will probably see it going to like a black screen or a gray screen a few times as I'm trying to do posts and stuff like that at the same time as I'm recording. But if anyone knows what is going on, please let me know. But other than that, I was starting to feel a little bad myself. Just like I got like a weird like stomach bug for a few days, but I think I'm better now. Let's see anything else that's going on. We are now less than 100 subscribers away from
Wow.
from 10K. I almost said 100K. No, we're not quite there yet. But yeah, it's finally we're in the final stretches of it. And I have no idea how long it's going to be till we get there, but I still don't know when we're going to do for a celebration. Because I always do everything for free, so it's hard for me to like come up with anything special for stuff.
Neo playthrough?
Yeah.
Something. We'll come up with something.
Yeah.
We'll come up with something.
I did finally get around to updating my Patreon thank you page. I made it a little nicer and shinier for people.
Yeah, I did see that. It was very shiny.
So if you guys want to be on the new shiny page, you know where to go for that one.
It's extremely shiny, man. Yeah. Very shiny.
But let's get to our topic. I don't want you to like fall asleep from COVID, and I don't want the thunder outside to knock us out. Or it may happen both at the same time. We'll see. But we are continuing our kind of talk about different genres and their evolutions, and we are talking about the shooter genre. A one that is near and dear to my heart, and it's very important because that is going to be actually book number 8 is going to be on shooters, 7 is on Souls-likes. So this is definitely something I've been thinking about, and it's one that we need to do, and certainly when everyone is up and at it for an influential games cast about the shooters as well. But the FPS and third-person shooter genre is another long-standing one. Again, coming from like the early 90s, we can call Wolfenstein one of the first. Ultima Underworld, when I was doing the RPG research, was technically the first-person perspective game. It beat Wolfenstein by about 3 months, if I remember from looking it up.
I thought Wolfenstein was the first one.
Yeah. Well, Wolfenstein would be the first actual like shooter-focused one, and then that would lead to Doom. Doom would lead to Quake, and we were off to the races. So, my first-person shooter would undoubtedly be Doom. So, what would be yours?
Mine was Wolfenstein. So, I started Wolfenstein 3D, went to Doom. I was immediately one of the coolest things about shooters is that you could actually like make levels. So like I was making Doom levels and Quake levels. There was mods going on, so there was a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, so Wolfenstein was my first foray into shooters, and I was hooked from then on. Like you were saying, very near and dear to my heart. Same thing for me. I think it's a one. It's akin to one of the genres that has always pushed the forefront through technology, through advancements in networking, for example, matchmaking, things that have weren't really introduced or needed to be introduced into other games that had become commonplace right nowadays due to shooters. But yeah. Well, and your first one was Doom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Doom, and then just kind of going to Quake, and then
Quake.
Continuing onward and onward there.
Yeah, so what would be after Quake then? I'm trying to think, because I was stuck on Quake level building for a while.
Mm-hmm. I guess after Quake, we kind of then entered like the era.
Chex Quest.
Yeah. Hexen. Duke Nukem was another one.
Duke Nukem, yes. Definitely.
And one of the like interesting things, and while we were having this whole delay and everything, I know there was the whole someone made a video about like the death of arena shooters, like a big famous YouTuber, and like they use examples like Half-Life and Doom as an arena shooter, and it threw the entire like shooter community up in a tizzy over that.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure how the arena shooter could be dead in any form or fashion. I mean,
it has, I think, declined, but it still is very popular, and
yeah,
we could certainly talk about like the peak of it during the late '90s, early 2000s, with the likes of Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament.
Oh yes, Facing Worlds.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, what's kind of interesting is when we talk about how the genre kind of changed or where it shifted to, is that it really turned into two different, I think, schools of design. You have the single player focus, kind of more, I guess, like technical, kind of, I don't want to say slower pace, but at least a little bit more careful in its shooting. And then you go for like the multiplayer, the arena style, very fast pace. And for me, I never really got into like multiplayer shooters all that much. I always feel like something didn't feel right in terms of the gunplay when I play something like an Unreal or a Quake versus, say, Doom and what we kind of saw the rise of the indie shooters over the past decade.
I can understand. I mean, just like the first thing you would say is just the network connectivity is going to add like a little bit of delay in responsiveness, like even under the best type of conditions, right? So compared to a single player, you'll have that immediate responsiveness, and you can have a lot of strange, very replication bugs in any type of arena, any type of multiplayer game, basically, right? So that might be contributing to that fact. I was really hooked on arena shooters for a while. I mean, I was playing like Quake Free for All and Doom with the bots, programming the bots, and I really loved that genre for a long time. The very fast paced. Only thing is that the older you get, the worse you get at that, because it's one of those genres that the younger kids just they no scope you and you're just gone. But yeah.
But when we talk about kind of like what makes a shooter, I think this is a good point to kind of segue into that. And then we'll kind of talk about how things evolved over the past like 10 to 15 years. Shooters have... Yeah, that sounds like my experience too, Vincent. Shooters have always been one of the most reflex-driven genres. I mean, it is literally how great you are at being able to tune in or get that scope on an enemy, how good you are at moving around. And it really didn't start to add in like what we could say is like RPG or abstracted based design until like late 2000s, early to mid 2010s. And as you were saying earlier, like level design has been such an interesting aspect. There are people, and as we all know, to this day, there are people who are still creating custom
Yes.
levels,
Yes.
partial and full conversions. GZ Doom is probably a
Yes,
name that
Jeezy
a
Doom.
lot of people recognize, and it's a genre that I think, like platformers,
Yeah.
it never really, I guess, quote unquote, died. Because I mean, the second that AAA kind of moved away from platforming, every indie developer jumped on that with the likes of Super Meat Boy, M++, Trine, and we can just go down that line there. And first person shooters, I think in a weird way, they never ran out of popularity. Like,
Right.
it just kept going. Like, if you remember when we talked about car combat, it was kind of like we
Right.
discussed car combat, and then it was just like, it hit that wall, and
That
we
was
never
it.
saw anything else, like, in terms of iterating on it. First person shooters just, it never stopped. So I guess
Right.
for you, like, in your opinion, like, why do you think the FPS genre just, it retained itself so much compared to other genres in the AAA space?
Yeah, that was a question that I was mulling over the most. I was like, no matter what, like if you look on Steam, right, it's like their shooters are the most played still to this day, right? They're like one of the most played games. And I don't know if I really have no idea, Josh. I'd really want to swing it back to you and see if you could, why do you think they've held so long? Like, shooters hit that wall, and if you really think about the mechanics of shooters, they were able to tack on other things, but the basic underlying mechanics and gameplay are pretty much the same as in platformers, right? Like if you took you would say, okay, Mario, and then for Mario 1 and then Celeste, right? They're still both platformers,
Mm-hmm.
and you could say Quake and then Doom, right? And the differences in the mechanics, but still the underlying is the same. So what about it that draws gamers to it so much? That to this day still, no matter what, it's something that people love to pick up and play no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I think as being reflex driven, it has always captured, I think, a lot of people who are looking for a very skill intensive game. And it's
Right.
one that, again, has only grown as more and more elements were added in. It never really had that break. And I think part of that was the fact that so many developers were making FPS franchises. Again, we had the likes of Unreal, Halo, Quake and Doom, Call of Duty. Let's see, there was Marathon, which was before Halo. And again, there's so many of them that came out in like that kind of like mid 90s, maybe like 94 to like 2004, 2005 period of developers all trying to
Splinter
experiment with it.
cells to everything. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, um,
Yeah, and I think the other aspect was, of course, the multiplayer side. Because
yeah,
multiplayer, as we all know, it greatly extends the life of a game. And it's
right,
why, again,
exactly.
so many people are trying to put that into games today with live service design, battle passes, all that good stuff, or quote unquote good stuff. But shooters have always occupied that space that once you get like that small, like hardcore following, they'll play that game, week after week,
Yes,
month after month, and there's no stopping them. As long as those servers are up or they run their own community servers, you're done. Like, that's it. Like, they'll just keep doing it.
exactly.
And what's kind of interesting is that when we look at kind of supporting the shooter genre, it is a genre that you don't necessarily see like the same level of new content when we talk about like RPG different games or having brand new levels. When we're talking about multiplayer driven titles like this, the big thing is just more maps. You need more
Yeah.
things for people to go on, you need more experimentation in that respect. And I guess this is, I think, an interesting question for you and for the chat as well. What do you think makes a good shooter map or a good FPS map? Because, again, this is something that people have been experimenting with for now probably over 30 years.
Right. To me, like one of the most important, like when I think of a really good shooter map, I think of an infinite loop, the ability to continuously be moving throughout, like through verticality and like through so like what is that the infinite shape. So you should always, wherever you're going, there should always be a point of interest. There should always be a reason to head that way, and then you should be able to like weave through the level, and then of course not have like spots of like sniper spots and like uh bad trajectories and stuff like that. But other than that, I think just the flow of the level is the most important thing. And it really shines in a shooter. Like, I mean, a bad map can just totally destroy your enjoyment of it, right? You're just like, I despise this map. I don't want to play the game right now anymore because this map is horrible. And a good map can just keep you hooked forever. But I really just think it's continuous flow. The ability to keep moving without running into blockades and endpoints and stuff like that. If there's always a different advantageous movement through verticality, progression, etc., then I think that it's one of the best aspects for maps. What would you say, Josh?
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially for multiplayer style games.
Yeah.
And Josh and Chad, Josh Meyer, thank you so much for
Josh
the
Meyer.
super chat. We
Appreciate that.
Welcoming us back to the Key to Games cast.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome back. Yeah.
Yeah,
appreciate you holding out while I had COVID. I mean, man, so I'm back now, but we're back. So thank you, Josh.
Yeah, for multiplayer, like, it should always feel like I've never been a fan of like multiplayer when they have like explicit choke points on the map.
Yes.
That there's only like one corridor between, the north and the south quadrant, so it just funnels it all into like that one killing floor. And then it just turns into, okay, who's in control now? And then it takes 10 minutes to break through, and then the second, someone takes that spot, we lose all that progress.
Right. And that's go ahead.
I was going to say, and like, as you were saying, in terms of having that sense of flow, like, one of the things that I think will come up in a few minutes is how much, movement really does matter. Like, that feel of movement in these games.
Big time. Big time. I mean, like, the movement from Quake or to, like, Half-Life 2, or the way movement feels in Call of Duty, or Gears of War, for example. Do you know what I mean? Very, very important. And as we always discuss, like, just moving around and how it feels to move around is very important, because that's what you're doing, right? Other than shooting, you have to move in between shooting. So,
yeah. Now, when we talk about kind of the single-player aspect of this is where it got very interesting, because there are so many things that kind of go into a different single-player map. And this is something that was brought up when we were replaying Doom 2. This will be, I think, last year. And either Doom... No, it was Doom 2 that we were replaying. And like how like the maps in that game kind of went into two different philosophies. You have kind of the kill focus maps, where it's about, here's interesting rooms, go kill everything that's trying to get you. And then there were kind of like the thematic or like puzzle based maps.
Puzzle based ones, yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you need to go find the switch to open up the door over here to get the key, which will then open up this wall, which will let you hit this switch, which will open up that door, and then the exit opens up right there.
Right, my least favorite ones.
And we've seen, I think, we've seen especially modders really experiment with, I guess, how focused or how wide map design is. And it's a very, I think, tough line to walk, because one of the things I've been seeing with a lot of the more recent, like, indie mon retro shooters have been really experimenting with wide spaces.
Yes.
There was a game we just played, Supplice. Hidon is another one where the levels are just these massive areas. And it can be very hard, I think, to have that sense of place. And I think that's something that kind of leads us into more of an environmental design discussion.
Yes.
But it is something that I think is a hallmark of good map design.
Yeah, and especially for shooters, right? There's so many elements that you need to consider. between cover, between trajectory points. And so that's why level design is it. I think within most genres, the level design is extremely important with multiplayer, with single player. Lighting is very important. Environmental storytelling is very important to lead the character correctly. So the player doesn't get lost. You know what I mean? Getting lost in a shooter is just the worst. And bad not knowing where you're going. And so, but yeah, like level design is very prominent. Like, and it's a good, shooters are a good place to study level design actually. Just from like design layout points and everything. So it's a good place to definitely reference.
And it's certainly one that can teach you about, as you said, like the flow of how to set up proper environmental details, how you keep the player moving from room to room, and even the act of having the player return to previous points in the level, let's say with a key, or you kill an enemy, you get the item, and then there's either a warp or a shortcut that opens up that takes you right back to where it is. Like, as you were saying earlier, you don't want the player to be fumbling around in the level.
No, not at
all dressed up and nowhere to go. Like, you don't know where the door is. And again, like, when we talk about reflex during games like this, it is such a wide line between, bad and good examples of it.
Indeed. Actually, what we need to do a show on that, I think. Like a full show on bad and good examples to study.
And before we kind of talk about when we move into the 2000s with the rise of color shooters, I do want to touch on gunplay and enemy design, because these are two other major aspects. So let's start with gunplay. This is a term that I kind of talk about when we're discussing like the feel of a weapon in the player's hands. And I think this has been one of the more like influential aspects of the shooter genre, is that you can feel like some of these weapons have become so iconic. Everyone knows, of course, the Doom shotgun. We have the chainsaw, Half-Life's gravity gun, and even stuff like we go into like really over the top with like the likes of Painkiller with the Painkiller weapon, Serious Sam with the giant cannon. There was certainly a lot. That's nice, Vincent. But a lot of like where we saw like the more extravagant or more over the top shooters have been really doing a lot with weapon design. So for you, like, what do you consider to be like a good weapon or a well designed weapon in a shooter?
First, you mentioned the Doom shotgun, and actually audio is very important. Like, so very important. And I'm not sure why, especially with shooting games, it's very important to hear the shell dropping, to hear some bass, to hear some extra foliage along with it that has variations. It keeps, like you've said it before, when jumping in the platform where it's just you can create so many variations with the audio and so much impact. And then of course the animations that go along with it, when you have excellently designed animations that are timed perfectly with the audio and the responsiveness. I mean, that just makes it right there, Josh. What would you say?
Yep. Like, as you said, audio is a very big point. Like, having the weapon and the enemy respond to it, I think, is such a big deal.
Yes. Yeah, definitely having... when you shoot an enemy and it doesn't do anything, it's not very satisfactory. If it reacts and reacts accordingly to like where you shoot and like the weapon that you're using, it is so much more immersion. And you can do a lot with it now, with physical animations and canning them, and there's a lot of stuff, but especially, like you said, the reactiveness of how the enemy responds to shots. You can tell a lot with that. So I think all of that together, especially, juice. So depending, how you're doing your gore and stuff like that, it also helps quite a bit. And so just most of those recipes together definitely just shored up.
Mm-hmm. I think what you said about the enemy react, I think that's also one of the reasons why a lot of the multiplayer shooters just did not work for me.
Right.
That idea that you shoot the enemy and they're still just running full speed.
Right.
I played on the stream last week. There's a game, let me grab the name of it really fast. Ghostware Arena of the Dead, which is kind of like an indie take on the arena shooter kind of craze, like very Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament design. And
the best.
I shoot the enemy and I'm hitting them, they're just still like moving at full speed, like they're not even, blinking as I'm hitting them in the back with a rocket launcher or anything, and it just didn't feel right to me. Now, if you enjoy that style, it's like going to be one of your perfect games. But for me, I think I really grew up playing like the rise of like single player shooters with like more challenging enemy design, where it's more about you reacting to the enemy rather than the enemy just, moving around at lightning speed.
Totally makes sense. I can understand that. I can see how the immersion of when you're playing a multiplayer game, and again the enemy just gets hit. There's no reaction because you can't really. And in a multiplayer situation, it's really hard to like replicate that animation and do it all perfectly and sync it and still have the player move. Like very complex. So like I can understand how that would almost just pull you out of the of the gameplay compared to when you're used to a single player game, when you have like, for example, Doom, and you have the enemy just reacting in the most amazing way, or Resident Evil or something, when everything, it's totally a different feeling, like to the, like, say for example, a shotgun, and you have the enemy just completely relaxing, ragdoll, doing all kind of stuff, compared to a shotgun and the player just keeps moving, right? I can totally understand that. So that's definitely a pro point that single player games can have and utilize. I think eventually in the future, maybe you'd be able to have more responsiveness in multiplayer shooters, but that's definitely something that's lacking. That's a good point, Josh.
In a weird way, as you were talking about that, the game For Honor popped into my head.
Yes, I was literally just thinking about that also while I was speaking.
Like, for those of you who don't remember, For Honor was the kind of third-person, almost like a Souls-like multiplayer game. Like, very, slow pace, very methodical pace with its weapon designs. But it's the complete opposite of what we just talked about with the arena shooters, with the multiplayer-focused shooters. In that game, you get hit, your guy gets stunned. Like, unless they have like a super armor ability on them. So it was very much about that kind of methodical combat. And as you were saying, I do wonder if something like that could work in multiplayer. Or, I'm sorry, in a multiplayer-based shooter.
Can you go again? What was that?
If something like the methodical nature of For Honor could work in like a multiplayer-based shooter.
Man, I don't know. I think it would be possible, but it's very context dependent. Maybe like I could see that happening in more of like a horror type game or something where you would have a reason to slow down the pace, right? And then I could see it work there. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, Hunt Showdown may be closer to what I had in mind. It's not as rapidly paced, but I've always been a sucker for games that, like, I guess make the act of shooting, like, very involved. Where it's not just you running and jumping and shooting. It's just like, you shoot your gun, you actually see the guy have to, like, put the bullets in the revolver, close the chamber, and then, cock the gun again. Like, I like when, like, each bullet really, really counts. And maybe that also goes back to, like, my horror roots, like playing a survival horror game where you need to make sure that if you only have 20 bullets, you gotta kill those enemies or you have nothing to defend yourself with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, when you have, there is nothing like, I remember when Twitter was still kind of working, and you would see people post their gun animations and reload animations. Some of them are just, it's just with beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the what you can show, like you said, reloading everything, like the movement of the hands,
Mm-hmm.
fingers, and everything. It adds like a whole complete new level of immersion compared to the bullet just being like that, like not so non-consequential, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. This is the difference between shooting one bullet and shooting 500,000 bullets.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So here's a question for chat, and even for you as well, because I was trying to remember. There was a indie series, they're up to 2 games now, where it's all about like super methodical gun usage. It was like a cyberpunk setting, but it's like one of those games where if you want to reload the gun, you have to actually take the chamber out. You pick up your the device you use to put bullets in. Put the bullets in one at a time. Refit the
Wow.
chamber. Use a screwdriver. Pull the gun back. So it's like it takes like 40 seconds to a minute to actually like shoot your gun one time.
No, I don't think I'd enjoy that.
I know that I think they went into VR. They use a VR for the second one, but I cannot remember the name of it. And if anyone knows what that is, please remind me
Drop
in
it
the
in chat,
chat.
please. I'm very interested in
Mm-hmm.
this now. I want to see it.
And speaking about musket style, receiver. Thank you, Joe.
Receiver.
Yes. I think, yeah, I own the first one. I know they did a sequel, which I have not played at all. But yes, Receiver and Receiver 2 both follow that idea that we are going to simulate the hell out of the act of firing a gun. And it is, again, like, there's definitely that line that you can cross in terms of just how intricate you want to make it, but for someone who's looking for that level of realism, it is a fantastic game. As you were saying a few minutes ago about like reload animations and animations of a weapon, that is definitely a game to look at.
You're a great game. All right, Joe. Gonna have to check that out too.
Hmm. And I guess here's a bit of a question: what do you think about games or shooters in particular, since we're on the genre, that feature unconventional guns or unconventional weapons? So what I mean would be, let's say having bow and arrow, or again
Right.
the cannon from Serious Sam, or one of my most recognizable ones is the painkiller weapon from Painkiller, which is it's a short range kind of buzzsaw which you can then like shoot out and like it hits an enemy and like kind of like pokes at them, and the kills them, it like launches the body at you, kind of scorpion style.
Or what was a dubstep cannon?
Oh yeah, from Saints Row.
I mean, depending on the creativity, they can be awesome. But sometimes I feel like it's like a blender of ideas sometimes.
Mhm.
But I do love seeing what creative ideas they come up with. I
Mhm.
was a big fan of the dubstep cannon for a while.
Mhm.
How do you feel, Josh? You like the wacky Ratchet and Clank stuff?
I do. I think it depends on the game itself, and again on how it feels to actually
Right.
use those weapons. There is the game Armed and Dangerous, which was a third-person shooter. It was kind of in the similar style as like Sacrifice and Giant Sis and Kabuto, where they just had like all kinds of crazy weapons. Like one weapon was you shoot in the ground, the entire ground reverses gravity, everyone like falls off the planet. And it did have a shark gun. You shoot the gun and shoot sharks out that travel along the ground and
Awesome.
attack people.
Awesome.
But I
And Todd Helm right there, Skyrim's Stealth Archer, one of the best shooters. I don't know. I have to agree.
But I think to get back to like what makes a good weapon, I think it's about what is the role of that weapon. Like if
Right.
you say this is a gun that shoots popcorn at people, but all this is just like a dressed up shotgun,
Dressed up.
like
Yes.
okay, thematically it's good, but it's not really doing anything interesting. If you say okay, this is a I don't know, a banana gun that you shoot it and like it like slides along the ground and it hits people in the foot, that could be something interesting. Or a banana peel weapon. And
There
like
you go.
anytime you leave it on the ground, someone can like slip on and messes up their firing.
Yeah, I mean, awesome. It just like it can't, like you said, it can't just feel like a regular pistol dressed up or a regular shotgun, it has to have some context and maybe something different, some different functionality, and then I'm on board. But again, just simply like you said, if it was just a banana gun and but it just shot like a regular bullet, that wouldn't be cool. But if it was a banana gun and then like you said, slip them up, then that would make sense and that would be good. So again, context dependent.
Yeah. And if I forget to bring this up later when we kind of talk about more modern shooters, someone remind me to talk about Bulletstorm, because that is one that I want to bring up. And to a Tarot's comment, yeah, High on Life.
Bulletstorm! Oh, yes!
Yeah. High on Life, yeah, I tried that one, and it had that same issue for me in terms of the impact of the weapons. But, again, like, the talking definitely helped to some extent. Again, the Rick and Morty humor, I have mixed tolerance for it, depending upon the time of day or how I'm feeling.
Yeah,
Spec Ops was good, yeah. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else for kind of like overall with gunplay before we talk about enemy design.
Let's see here. Go ahead.
I guess like we could talk about like ultimate weapons like the BFG. But again, like I think the thematic nature of the weapon is important, but then also how practical it is.
Right.
Like, one of the things that always annoyed me is that when you have weapons that you only can shoot like 2 or 3 shots in the level, and then that's it.
That's the best, and you never find more ammo for it ever again.
And when we talk about Doom Eternal and push forward combat later on, that will come back up in spades about how much things have changed with those games.
Exactly.
Ooh, I just saw one last weapon question for you and for the chat. What are your thoughts on hit scan weapons versus projectile base? And
okay,
for those of you listening who don't know what we're talking about, a hit scan weapon is, instead of the bullet actually having like a physical hitbox on the screen or in the level, it's just a matter of, is the cursor on the enemy? If you hit yes, it kind of shoots like that invisible line, hits them, the damage is instant. Where a projectile is, of course, you shoot the rocket and you can see it like going across the screen to hit that enemy.
Right. So, not a fan of hit scan weapons, but the reason that they're necessary, and this is the reason, is because a hit scan is a million times easier to replicate in a multiplayer game than an actual projectile. Projectile has to pass its transform if it has physics, for example. When instead, like you were saying, you're literally just if you're over the enemy. So there's no calculation. It's like zero calculation compared to an actual moving object that every single client also has to be aware of. So I'm 100% projectile, anti-hit scan. I do understand why they're necessary, though, for certain games. If I had it my way, it would all be projectile-based, so. Josh, what do you think?
I just imagine developers having a nightmare right now, like a fully multiplayer, all projectile based, with the server trying to keep that in load without lag, causing problems with everything. Somewhere a FPS designer just had a heart attack, and I apologize.
I know, and I know people that have tried it. Like, they were like, I want to be able to pick up everything like in Skyrim, and then I'm like, bro, no.
For me, I think, again, like growing up playing so many single-player shooters, I do like hit scans, but I do like the projectiles, like, again, if it's something that is very, I guess, like, intricate or very involved, that it's not just, here's just this, like, yellow balls moving very slowly across. And I think a lot of that could also be...
Wasn't the BFG, like, really slow, the green one? It was like...
I think that could also be from... all the times I've played shmups and bullet hells, where like I like when it's like, okay, here's like this rainbow spinning, bouncing bullet pattern, and just try and dodge you like Returnal. Like I think like Returnal would be like the kind of game that I would like. Like just here's an entire screen of death. Let's see. Hit scan. Oh God, Pony. That just
hit scan rocket launcher. Yes, I'm gonna have to add that into Bruce Rampage.
I think you just caused trauma to a lot of people there, Pony, by typing that. Lumen rate. Yeah, we need to have 4K shadows. Every bullet should be, modeled ultra high def.
Ray trace shadows on the bullets. I love it. But yeah, I actually no lie, I've actually coded a hit scan rocket launcher. So just saying.
There you go. You could you could do it. Make sure to send it to all the professional multiplayer shooter fans as well. They will, and just record their reaction to that.
Are you tired of projectile weapons? I got you.
Let's see. Anything else?
I want to slip on my physics-based bullets. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Banana gun, right, Josh?
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so I think that's it for guns. Again, we'll be talking about this more. Who knows how long this will actually go, whether internet or we'll be still awake, but there's certainly a lot to talk about in terms of shooters. Definitely. Here. Let's talk a little bit about enemy design, and then we'll start moving into kind of like the evolution over the 2000s of shooters.
Sounds good.
Enemies are another very interesting, because as we've spent the last 40 minutes or so talking about, just as guns can either be very, intricately designed or just very, wild and just shoot thousands of bullets, enemies fall into that same category. And I think we can arguably break down enemy designs and shooters into three categories. You have the generic grunts who just charge at you, the head crabs, all those the kamikaze enemies from Serious Sam. That there's another trauma-inducing moment for people.
Oh, gosh.
You have actual range enemies. The basic Doom grunt, those Doom like basic shotgunners and those. And then you of course have kind of like the elite enemies, the ones that when they show up, you can't really ignore them. So this would be like the Barons of Hell, Archfiends, or Archviles. Always get those names confused from Doom. If we're talking about like Doom Eternal, this would be when we get to Marauders, the elites in Ultra Kill, and so on. I guess for you, like, what do you think about when it comes to enemy designs in shooters?
Give me another aspect of. Give me another way of that question.
I guess like how do you go about? I guess like coming up with like good enemy designs, or what makes a good enemy design?
Right. Okay. So I believe that first off, like Doom was like a real pioneer of this, is that diversification of the enemies, right? Is like one of the most important things. So you can have one enemy that's slow, one enemy that's ranged, and one enemy that's, I don't know, take your pick. But the thing is that allows you to choose who you're going after first. It gives some strategy. So I think that's the best way. I am not a fan of like Serious Sam design AI. I think I threw that game in the trash every time, or deleted it at least. I'm a really big fan of like highly intelligent shooting AI, and during Quake, if you remember correctly, this was around like the time of like behavior trees were starting to come out, and there was things like fuzzy AI logic. Mm-hmm. So it was like a very old school. They were bots, and it was like a very old school way of like machine learning, but kind of not really. And so there was a lot of advancements in AI, like example in the Quake bots. They would actually they weren't aware of the level, and they would actually learn the level, and they would actually learn from your playstyle and stuff. And I think Fear was also another one that incorporated some amazing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So also, just as an AI aficionado, I think that the smarter the AI, the better. Now, Serious Sam AI does have a place. It just, again, context, theming, etc. It does exist. There are certain games that you can pull it off in. Josh, what's your thoughts on that, chat?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up Fear, because I was thinking that as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it depends once again on what is the kind of shooting, or what is the kind of gunplay you want in your game. If it's like a full on, here's you, here's 500 enemies around you, go nuts kind of affair, then having like a very basic AI when it's more about kind of player positioning and movement
Yes,
is certainly fine.
definitely.
But when we're talking about like especially as we saw the last 20 years, when we started to see shooters and the actual gameplay evolve more, when we're giving the player more unique tools, more unique abilities, then I think it becomes more interesting to have those enemies that actively challenge the player. That
Correct.
it's not about, okay, here's 30 enemies and they're running at me. There's a guy up there who's sniping. There's another guy over there who's buffing the team. This guy is just, throwing bombs at you. And
don't tempt me with a good time, Josh.
there you go. When we played through Quake last year, one of the things that was so shocking about were I think they were called imps, the guys with the grenade launchers, and how damn good they were at ricocheting those grenades. Like,
yeah.
They were like, it was just like, he's like 8 feet away. He can't possibly hit me. I see the grenade go,
no.
Boom. Like, just like a perfect mortar shot with that grenade. Yeah. And it's like, I just stopped and said, props to the AI. Like, you got that grenade down.
When I used it, I couldn't hit anything. Like, it just bounced the wrong way.
Well, like, that AI's like, you're off this wall, over there, bounce around the corner, and it hits me. Or it lands, like, right next to my feet.
That game had some amazing like math and like advancements and some programming. Really neat stuff in that game.
Mm-hmm. And as you were saying with fear, and yeah, to Pony's talking about Doom Eternal, we are going to get to that one for sure. Yeah, the AI. Oh man, like Vincent's comment about the AI director in Left 4 Dead makes me really sad because I was hoping more people would really like push that idea further of having the AI like really manage things like that. But it never really, I think, evolved. Like, it had like a very hard limit on what that director could do for you. And I was hoping someone would try and like give us like something more advanced than that. Now, of course, we're going to be trying Back 4 Blood later, so maybe I'll be eating those words in a few hours.
I'm hoping I can make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like good personnel chat AI. Yeah, there you go, Vincent. Like good AI behavior in these games is such a hard thing to do because one of the other aspects of this is we were talking about hit scan weapons. Imagine if we just supercharge or make the AI super advanced and give them all hit scan weapons. So it's just kind of like, I step out, boom, you're dead. Like, they just like hit you perfectly without any kind of thought. And that goes back to, everyone's favorite level, the infamous Sniper Town level from Medal of Honor, where it's like, I can barely see the enemies. What's that little glint? Oh, I'm dead. Not just pre-can. Yeah, and that's what we were saying earlier in terms of like the field weapons. So you want the enemy to actually properly react to that. And I guess as we're on the subject, yep. As we're on the subject of fear, I wanted to ask you this as well as a chat. What are your thoughts on secondary abilities in shooters? And what I mean by that is giving the player non-shooting base power. So bullet time. Let's say a dodge. Maybe teleporting. Picking up telekinesis is another popular one.
Weren't we going to talk about Bulletstorm?
Yeah. So
I'm huge fan. Mm-hmm. I thought that like Bulletstorm, even as crude as it was, like in a lot of ways, the gameplay was brilliant. I thought it was. I don't know how you felt about Bulletstorm, Josh, but I thought it was really well done. I don't think I've seen a shooter like pull it off so well before.
Yep, I love Bulletstorm as well. Yeah. Maybe one day. I think I have the.
Is it co-op?
Remake? I want to say maybe.
That would be wicked. I'll buy it right now. Let's do it.
It has online co-op according to the full clip edition.
Yeah, and if anybody in chat has not played Bulletstorm, I don't like again the comedy and like the crudeness. If you ignore that and just simply like play the mechanics in that game, it's like a master class. And how we were talking about like adding new mechanics to a game or different type of weapons and like what did they have that the skill based like the score
skill
system
shots, yes.
skill shots. Oh my gosh, genius.
Yeah, and that I think is a very interesting segue, or like when we come back to this in a few minutes, like it's kind of in that like evolution of what we begin to see with like modern shooters. This idea of implementing more action-based design or more master tech design in a shooter, and that we're almost an hour in. Like I can rave out for another 2 hours. So we may have to do a part 2 on shooters or just mastering.
We'll have to do a part 2 because I'm almost COVIDed out for this one. So let's get the important parts and then we'll get going.
All right. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about how things evolved, and again, we can certainly talk about
let's do part 2 next Saturday.
Yeah,
and that
All right. So in that case, let's see. What should we talk about too? I guess as like one final big topic. Should we talk about kind of like the 2000s era, and then we'll save 2010s for
yeah. Let's talk about the 2000s and then continue on in the next one.
All right, sounds good. So. And we'll save, of course, Bulletstorm and like for next week as well. But the 2000s of shooters is when we began to see this massive shift in terms of single player and multiplayer design. And I mean, we could argue that the FPS genre from in 2000 was probably almost unrecognizable to the shooter genre in 2009 or 2010.
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of that came with this idea of, I guess, grounding the shooter genre. That the likes of Doom, Quake, Hexen, Duke Nukem, and so on at their peaks were no longer considered in vogue. Instead,
I thought it was adding brown to everything.
Browns and grays was a part of that as well.
Browns and grays, yeah.
And I mean, like Call of Duty, the original one, that we were in that innocent time before there's been like 47 Call of Duties, and they're all
right.
But like the original Call of Duty began, or was kind of like one of the first who had this kind of more grounded nature to it. And it is such a very interesting contrast between that and Half-Life. And we may need to talk about Half-Life for next week as well,
where
we can bring that up.
Because that one definitely needs a little bit of a deeper dive also.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a massive topic. Like I said, I mean, it's so influential in every way. How it's effective, like game design. So
yeah. So for I guess this point of our talk, then let's we'll again focus or talk about more about like the cover-based shooters, the slower-based shooters, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I hear noise around. I may close my door in a second, but the cover-based shooter trend really went hand in hand with this kind of slowing down of the FPSs. This is when everyone's favorite thing, when we had to have weapon limits, when you couldn't just hold 5 a Magnum shotgun, rocket launcher, sniper rifle, pistol, Uzi, assault rifle, grenade launcher.
That was a big change for me. I was like, I want 8 weapons. What is this loadout?
But I guess for you and for chat, when things began to slow down, when we entered the Call of Duty, and even we could, argue the Counter-Strike era of FPSs, how did you enjoy those, or did you enjoy like that particular period?
I actually really like the first initial Call of Duties because of their like connectivity and the newness of them. I definitely gave a whirl and enjoyed, and of course everybody was into them at the time, right? So it was easy to find one of your friends playing it or regardless, and it was like everybody was like, the first one was on was it on 360 or PC? I cannot remember now, but
I want to say PC.
PC, right? Yeah, and so I mean, I did not enjoy that time. I'm not like, as we talked about before, I'm more a fan of like rip and tear and push forward combat. So like when I was forced to hide and cover and wait, it really like kind of slowed down my enjoyment and like distracted me. Josh, how did the ground bray area affect you?
Yeah, the same way. Like this is when we got to like this more, I guess, generic kind of shooting. Like
Yeah.
we've all seen the meme of modern FPS design is like one long straight line, and then 90s FPS design is like this like giant confusing maze. And I felt like both have their severe limitations, but this was kind of where we kind of entered this, I guess, like spectacle era of shooting, where it's more about set pieces, more about.
Right.
It's not so much about what you're
Michael
doing.
Bay style.
Yeah, like enemy to enemy, bullet to bullet. It's more about, okay, here's this massive area. There's helicopters flying. There's a bomb going off. Is the complete opposite, really,
very
of
set PC.
Yeah, of like what we saw with Fear. Like Fear and kind of what we saw the evolution into like push forward combat is that in those kinds of games, combat becomes this more of a sandbox kind of environment. It's like, here's all your crazy powers, here's your crazy weapons. How are you going to rip and tear for the next 5 to 10 minutes? Right. Whereas the set pieces, it's, okay, you're in this room. What do you do, to move to the next event trigger? And don't get me started on how annoying, like, how trigger focused some of these games can be.
Yeah, immensely so. I think I've like given up being like, I don't know how to continue, and I think I've killed everyone already.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't kill enough enemies in the right spot, right. So you have to wait. Oh, chat's gonna hate me when I say this, but I have not played a Titanfall 2
Titanfall
yet.
2! Oh my gosh, even Titanfall 1 is amazing. That was I think that was one of I really enjoyed that time. Like it was just like robots, and then you could run around and jump on the robots, like very unique and very fast paced. And yeah, and then I didn't spend as much time in Titanfall 2, so someone could enlighten me if it's worth the time. But I loved did you play the first one, Josh?
No, didn't play either one.
Wow. Oh, man.
Yeah. The problem is, of course, it requires Origin. And that's right. Always that tough sell for me these days.
I'm not. It's still uninstalled in mine. I'm not, not doing it.
So I guess here's a question. Where do you consider Halo? Because we're kind of in that early 2000s era to like wrap up this part with, but how do you see Halo in the grand scheme of kind of FPS design?
I think Halo was very important as far as like multiplayer expansion and like not adaptability, but like people being comfortable with multiplayer games. And I think on consoles and stuff like that. And I think it was really important for that. It also was like, I don't think it was one of the first ones, but it did, again, how we were talking about AI design. That one used finite state machines for the AI. So it allowed them to make some really neat decisions. So as far as Halo, like excellent level design, there was that, what was the vehicle called that you could drive around in with your homies?
Do not remember. Could be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just had a lot of really nice stuff. Again, like, it was Bungie, right? Don't. Okay, yeah. Again, they were They like totally at that time like mastered how we were talking about how guns feel, how they sound, and so I think I don't know where Halo stands now. But I think at that time it was very groundbreaking for like all of the things that it was able to push out and create and normalize for shooters. What would you say on that, Josh?
Yep, I would agree with that. And I think it was Vincent who said in chat, yeah, Halo was a console breakthrough shoot. Yeah, like it was the system maker for the original Xbox.
Definitely for the Xbox.
Without a doubt. So I'm going to get us all in trouble for this question. Halo or GoldenEye? Which one was more influential for shooters on the consoles?
GoldenEye.
We'll see how much we get canceled for that one in the recorded version when it goes up. Yeah, while we wait for chat to send us hate there.
What does chat say? Like, what is it? One for, or just say what you like, Halo or GoldenEye.
There we go. Banjo 2, yep, Pony. I remember that hardcore FPS play in Banjo 2.
I'm healing, Vince. I'm not fully COVID yet. I swear. No, actually, you know what? I will take it back. I think that as Halo being the console maker and just like again, the AI was really like at that time breakthrough. I think that compared to GoldenEye, well, GoldenEye might have like normalized like some really neat stuff like local play, like with your friends on the TV and stuff like that. I think Halo really was one of the first ones that, or not one of the first ones, but you know, because with Quake and Doom did it all before, but it just was like the biggest breakthrough for like multiplayer. I literally didn't know anybody who owned an Xbox and did not own that game, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I think I would argue that while GoldenEye was kind of like the first big name, I think Halo, in terms of its place in the industry, probably has the larger footprint these days.
Definitely.
It is a game that is, as everyone is saying, like this is the game that really normalized online, even local-based shooters during the Xbox era. I mean, my one and only LAN party I ever attended was a Halo night at a guy's house.
Awesome.
We had like 4 Xboxes in like 4 different rooms of the house, cables running all over the place.
I love it.
And that was what we did. And yeah, like it was the game that it really does. Sorry, Doom runs everywhere these days, Pony.
I'm gonna try it on my COVID test later.
There you go. You have to beat E1M1 to figure out if you're a positive or negative.
No problem. I've been watching the speedruns of it lately.
I think to Malwini's comment, why is GoldenEye such a special game? It was kind of like the first shooter on a Nintendo console, or well, technically first like original shooter, because they of course ported Doom to the SNES. Which, oh man, I never want to play a first person shooter on a Super Nintendo.
Did you play it? You didn't play it?
I think I did once, and it was like horrible.
I owned it. Ooh. I owned it, Josh.
Yeah. We did mention Wolfenstein right at the beginning, Pony. Yeah, that was.
Oh yeah.
I went in like reverse order. Then I played like Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein. I kind of did it like that.
Nice. Yeah. No, I went in order. I was Wolfenstein, Doom, and then Quake. Quake was the one that was just. I mean, I was like, oh man, I'm game dev for life. Like Mario was the first one that really sparked it for me. But once like the shooters came out and like there was level editors and you could start doing mods, I was off to the races. Like I was making levels. I wish I could find them. They're on 3.5 disc still. Somewhere maybe in my grandparents' house I'll find them again. But yeah, definitely.
I had to close the door, the fire alarm was going off.
Oh no, I didn't even hear it, no worries.
But you see,
hopefully there's no fire.
It's just normal alarms around here. I'm totally calm. But yeah, like the early consoles in terms of shooters was pretty bad there. Where is there? Wait, there's a fridge behind me?
Yeah, I told you it looks like a fridge. But it's your like cabinet, right?
Yeah. I could use a fridge actually behind me. Keep all the drinks right there.
Yeah, I was just at Walmart and I was looking at the fridge and I was like, oh, I want it so bad, but I need to get a chair from we need to get a chair.
This is when we talk about like old man gaming. Like we're not talking about buying expensive monitors or video games. We're just like, we need a refrigerator in here. We could use a better chair.
That's right. Game wisdom. Yeah. Game wisdom, man.
Yeah, but yeah, like GoldenEye was kind of like the first one. I always found Perfect Dark to I think be far more interesting to play. I'm not sure how well that one stands up. I think I need a
It
new chair as
doesn't.
well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like if you go not don't even like play the remakes, just go back and play Halo and go back and play GoldenEye, and you will quickly be disappointed with GoldenEye, and you'll realize, wow, Halo is a very, very polished, amazing shooter. And so like it was just the IP for one, and then it was again Nintendo console, like you said, Josh. And then it was like the first one to let's utilize like the like a shooter in that form, and so it was just very neat. It was like that's all.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as going back to it, I think you'll be a little bit disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Slappers only.
Yeah, so as we got like getting off of Halo for now, like Halo, I guess like to is such an interesting one. Like that's one that we definitely need to spend more time on. Like it's kind of like that, like Halo, Bulletstorm, even going back to like Clive Barker's Undying, as we saw like the more unconventional shooters. And oh yeah, for next week, if I don't remember, someone remind me we have to talk about Bioshock and kind of
Oh
like
my
that era
gosh, yeah.
of thematic shooters.
When you were talking about level design, like it
Mhm.
was there in my head. We went to something else, and I was like, Bioshock, Bioshock, Bioshock. Don't forget.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we get on Bioshock. That's another 40 minutes just on
Yeah.
Bioshock One. I could rant and rave about that.
Did you play like all? It was not a trilogy. It was like a fourlogy. Did you play them all?
I played them all, but I did not touch like any DLC. So the
Yeah.
Bioshock Infinite DLC I didn't do. Bioshock 2, I did not beat that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
I played through them, and oh, I have so many thoughts on Bioshock that
Interesting. I'm interested. I'm very interested to hear that.
oh, I don't have the time.
I've actually spent a lot of time. Surprisingly, if anybody played Bioshock 2 multiplayer, I prestiged that twice. So just
Oh yeah, yeah. So reminder for everyone for next week, where we'll talk about the 2010 shooters, and we have to talk about like thematic shooters, like the
let me
Half
write that
Lives,
down before I forget.
Bioshocks, and so on. Oh, good. Pony's giving me PTSD from that line from Half Life 2.
Which one? Oh.
Vincent, I P rank Pizza Tower, so I am completely stress free. Like I am calm and at zen now. Like
All
nothing
zen
will.
out. Books done. Pizza tower
Yeah.
cleared. Life complete.
There we go. Exactly. Nothing more we need to do.
Is Portal a shooter?
I would say it's more of a first-person
It's a
puzzle game.
First person puzzle game. Yeah, definitely. I think there's things that can shoot you. There's those little robots, but you can only like disperse them through portals. So
Yeah. Well, it's still a very interesting, unique weapon.
yeah.
And I guess, oh man, there's so many topics. Again, like this is one of those genres that I can rant and rave about for like 5-10 hours. Like it's
Well,
nothing.
we'll just do four. We'll do
Yeah.
4 episodes of it.
Yeah. What was I about to say? Like, I do want to talk more about like unique weapons, but we'll save that for the thematic topic for next week. But to
Okay.
stay on cover shooters, like the whole cover shooter trend really brought with it a complete slowing down. So here's another controversial question for you and for chat: static healing, as in finding health kits, meat, wall turkeys, versus regenerating health. Do you have a preference?
Okay, so I I actually like spent half of this week or most of this week while I was suffering COVID, and I was thinking about it. I was like, which one is preferred? Did I enjoy picking up
Mhm.
health kits in Doom and Quake? Or did I just prefer my health regenning? Um, and I think when it really comes down to it, I think that a combination of push forward combat with the health item is probably the best of both worlds. How do you feel about it, Josh?
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way that I prefer. Like, I don't like static healing by itself
Yeah, not by
simply
itself.
because it makes it too much of a hoarding situation that,
Yeah.
hey, I used too much health in this room, I'm now dead in this room.
Yes.
The problem with just full cover is, as you know, when we talk about push forward combat next week, it's basically, okay, I need to stop everything that I'm doing for 30 to 45 seconds and wait for my health bar to slowly rise up. I like, again, like, the more active. Like, I like rewarding the player for being able to do something like that. Like, if a game has, like, a weapon that lets you, like, get health back from killing enemies with it, with static weapons, I think that could be or static healing.
That's a good, that's like a great, like, if you are out of and you have this one, like, I don't know, weapon on number one, and that's your axe, and that gives you health back, great, something like that. There's definitely so many solutions that you can do. But, like, I mean, that's really when I fell out of shooting. I was like, I do not want to hide behind this rock for 45 minutes, 45 seconds. I mean,
that's extreme.
Yeah, that's extreme. Yeah, that's permadeath mode. Yeah, it's 45 minutes.
Yeah, and it is such a hard thing because, again, like, part of, like, the 2000s was really this period of trying to, I guess, mainstream video games, and that is a topic, again, that's another 5-hour discussion for me about. And a lot of it was kind of removing a lot of the difficulty spikes of popular genres, and one for shooters was this idea of, hey, there's no more healing, well, I guess I go die now. It's now, okay, we just, hide behind this wall. My favorite, the thing that drove me crazy is when it has to be environmental, that you have to, sit behind, you have to be perfectly behind this wall or the character won't heal.
Yes, I love it. No, I don't.
Why not both, Vincent?
Cooking simulator. It's both of them. Skyrim's everything simulator.
Yeah, and the tactical...
And a bug simulator. Really great bugs.
Like, the tactical shooter was a very interesting one. What was that?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, stuff like the Spec Ops, the Call of Duty Brothers in Arms. Like, we got to, like, where... I think that's where it got a little bit more interesting. When you have, like, AI teammates, or you have other people that you can actually, like, shoot around with. So it's not just, hey, I step outside... Here's 87 bullets in my face. It's, me and 3, 5, 8 other people, and they're all, we're all trying to do something. I think I find that a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
If the game is designed for it. There have been plenty of shooters where the AI only targets you. Like, they know that those guys, we don't need to worry about them. We just focus on this one over here.
I'm trying to think. I know I've played some shooters like that, and I was like, I got 4 other teammates. Like,
go shoot them.
Go shoot them. But yeah, like, I don't know, maybe Spec Ops for the next episode. But like, how did you feel about? I mean, to me, Spec Ops is probably one of my favorite single player shooters, like, of all time. Do you feel the same way about it?
I feel like I'm kind of mixed. Like, I love the thematic nature. I love the aesthetics of that game. Like, it looks beautiful. But some of the shooting, it falls into, like, some of these we were complaining about earlier. Being very set-piece driven.
Yes.
One of the things that always drives me nuts about set-piece design, where it's like, okay, here's this giant room. You can go around and kill. And then, after you kill, like, the 6th enemy... Here's this giant elite who just walks in, you're completely out of cover, boom, you're dead. So you have to know, okay, after that 6th enemy, immediately run behind cover or the guy will just, instantly kill me.
Yeah, and ammo doesn't respawn on when you revive, when you come back.
Yeah. But to keep with, like, the cover-based shooting, to kind of wrap up the section, like, the slowing down of shooters in the 2000s was such, again, like, it's very interesting. Like, this is where we saw shooters evolve into, where, in a very weird comparison, the horror genre became more action in the 2000s. Like, horror sped up, shooters slowed down. It was, like, complete reverse of the 90s.
Right. I'm still, if you did you already do your shooter book yet, Josh?
No, that's sometime in 2023.
Okay, so right now let's just, like, theorize why Was it because like the Quake type games were getting too fast and they felt that it needed to be slowed down so it could be more methodical? Why was the change and why was it so brown and gray? Any theories?
I think some of it could have been like you mentioned earlier, like the Michael Bayification. I think
Yeah.
the 2000s. I think thanks to like the likes of Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, we really saw this kind of like it's like Hollywoodization of a lot of these games, where it had to be more grounded, it had to be more serious, and all that. And if you remember from Sunset Overdrive, when they did the trailer, the original teaser for it, they completely like made fun of that. Like, I still love that opening, like the reveal for where it's like it looks like it's gonna be this brown gray cover based shooter, and then the guy runs in with his soda rocket launcher and just starts shooting up everything.
Yeah,
I had an idea. Like one of my dream ideas was like a game like a shooter, but using cartoon physics powers. So it's kind of like instead of using a gun, you like you actually like shoot your fist like 50 feet and like hit an enemy like that, or you like throw dynamite, and so it's all like Looney Tunes attacks in a shooter.
Love it. Well, you need a name. What's the name?
I'm horrible with names, so I'll let someone figure that one out. Yeah, crouching was replaced by just a high cover. Oh, don't get me started on that one, Melanie. I hate when games have a dedicated cover button, but if you're behind the object and you don't hit that button, it doesn't count as you in cover.
Are they? I can't remember which game it did, but if you didn't do it right, it would jump you over the cover instead.
Probably Gears of War, like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Pony's like giving me more trauma with chest high walls.
Walls. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What else? More trauma from cover shooters. Mm-hmm. Anyone else's PTSD stories?
I already mentioned like the Spec Ops, but yeah, I love when they had like that one elite enemy. His whole job is just walk very slowly across the map, and every one of his bullets does like 50% more damage than anything else, and you're just like unloading on him. He's just like walking like RoboCop up to you slowly, and then the second he walks behind your cover, you're dead. Like he's just gonna go boom, and that's it. There goes your entire health bar.
Halo Sword Elite.
Active reload. Yep. But yeah, like the whole cover-based shooting, was that popular for multiplayer? Because again, like Call of Duty, like as we all know, like once it really ramped up multiplayer, they're just like bunny hop till the cows come home. Here's everyone jumping around, shotgun, no scope.
Yeah, spinning 360 and everywhere. Everybody was just spinning.
But yeah, did that cover-based shooting ever become multiplayer popular? Because it became very popular for single-player games.
Yeah, I think that only like horde-based ones, like it would work well, right? When
Gears
like
of
you're
War,
yeah. Other than that, like I mean, you imagine like the amount of time that players would just be turtling behind like, two covers, and like one would pop up and the other one would pop up. Like it would just be very bore fest. So yeah.
I'm curious, for chat, for anyone watching us record right now, what was the state of Gears of War multiplayer? Like, I obviously like Halo multiplayer never went away. Like people are debating, arguing over like Halo Infinite as we speak, but I never heard like the same level of discussion around Gears of War multiplayer.
Yeah. Me neither. Yeah, anybody in chat with experience and comments, let us know. Yeah, because I have the only thing I heard was just horde mode. So,
so I think with that again, there is 30 other topics we can be moving on to.
Yes,
but I know we are over an hour and 20 in. You may fall asleep at your keyboard at any moment. So, and I have dinner. The dinner alarm is going off behind me.
Dinner alarm, yes.
Yeah, so that's how extreme my house is. We don't have a dinner bell. We have the dinner alarm.
NG++++.
Yeah. So, let us save things for next week. So for the people watching us right now, next week for part 2, we're going to be discussing kind of the thematic shooter era, the Half-Lifes, Undyings, Bioshocks, and if we have time, we'll go into kind of push forward combat and the evolution in the 2010s to where we're at today. And we will, of course, have to mention, Battlefield era shooters. The whole,
I promised Vince that we were going to cover Battlefield today, but I forgot how much there is to cover. I mean, Wolfenstein 3D alone is there for the health.
Yeah, and we'll have to bring up, of course, like Fortnite and Battle Royale. That's
Battle, yeah.
So there may be a part 3 to this. We'll have to kind of play it by ear, but let us wrap things up for tonight. For next week, we'll try to get back to our regular time around 5 p.m. ET.
Yes.
So for everyone new, do the liking, bell ringing, YouTube stuff, and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for understanding well and sending well wishes while I was down with COVID. Appreciate that. Again, like, subscribe, join the Discord. While we're discussing the shooter genre, a very important genre. If you have any favorite games, favorite moments, please leave them down below. And I think that's about it. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah. All of your links are down below. All of my stuff. And so we will be back next Saturday around 5 p.m. for the kind of thematic or, special kinds of shooters, and we'll play it by ear for part 3. Yes. So, Josh, again, it is great hanging out with you. We finally have you back on after what seems like a eternity.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be back on. So, because, man, if you don't get it, don't catch it.
just hide behind a wall.
Just hide behind, cover behind the wall, and you're just waiting.
40 minutes behind a wall, it cures COVID. That's how it works.
That's it.
All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your weekend and the week as well. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where you examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.